Have you ever caught yourself trying to be the ideal guy and still ended up being pushed aside? Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt that the firmness you once carried in your eyes had vanished, as if it had faded, trying to become what she wanted? This isn't madness, it's real, and silently, it's eating men from the inside. It starts with small concessions. A little change here, a sure love there, a swallowed desire, a postponed decision, all in the name of what they call love. But what gets lost in the middle of it all is the man, the essence, the respect. Seneca wrote, "The most shameful slavery is that of the man who bows to please those who don't respect him." And maybe that's exactly where you are right now, bowed down. Not out of weakness, but out of confusion, because no one taught you that there are requests that shouldn't be granted, that there are boundaries that shouldn't be crossed, that there's a kind of yes that, when said, doesn't win, it destroys. This video isn't an attack on women, it's a restoration of your power. Because here's something few have the courage to say. Many of the things a woman asks for are not requests. They're tests, and every time you accept everything in silence, thinking you're being a good partner, you stop being the very thing that attracts her most. A man with center, direction, and boundaries. You start to notice that the more you yield, the more she pulls away. The kinder you are, the less desired you become. The more accessible you are, the less mystery you carry. It's in this silent game, full of small concessions, that masculinity gets chipped away, inch by inch, gesture by gesture, until the day she looks at you and says coldly, "You're not the man I fell in love with." And the pain isn't just from rejection, it comes from the awareness that in trying to be loved, you erased yourself. This video is a mirror, but not to judge you. It's to show you that you're not weak, you're hurt. Because you confused love with obedience. You confused partnership with self-erasure. You confused presence with submission. And now it's time to come back. Back to your center, back to your firmness. Back to your calm, unshakable no. That is the path that rebuilds respect, desire, and your presence as a man. Get ready. Today you're going to understand that some of the things she asks of you are not innocent, and accepting them may cost you the most valuable thing you have, your identity. Because a man who doesn't know where he ends is a man who has already begun to disappear, and the world, especially hers, respects the one who stands firm, even when the request comes with a smile. It all starts with subtle compliments about other men. A casual comment like, "That guy is so sweet." A veiled complaint disguised as longing, "You used to be so much more affectionate." And without realizing it, you shift into adaptation mode. You adjust your tone, you filter your words, you calculate every response, and inside, a war begins against your own essence. You think you're evolving, becoming more sensitive, more ideal, but what you're really doing is disconnecting from your roots. And the cruelest part is that the moment you drift from the man you were, she also drifts from you. Because feminine desire isn't born from predictability. It doesn't flourish in control. It feeds off of strength, off of axis, off of emotional resistance. You become lighter, more flexible, more moldable, and ironically, less desirable. Because the moment you become a reflection of what she wants, you stop being the mystery that once attracted her. And then comes the cutting phrase, spoken from the same mouth that once asked you to change. "You're not the same man anymore." No, you're not. You lost yourself trying to become what she said she wanted, but not what truly sparked admiration. A woman can feel that. She feels it when you no longer carry that fire in your eyes, when your presence no longer weighs in the room, when your words seek approval instead of expressing truth. And the pain that remains is the pain of having done everything right and still being discarded. But the truth is, what she wanted, perhaps without realizing, wasn't an obedient man. It was a man with presence, with pulse, with limits, with truth. You gave in. You gave in out of fear, out of love, thinking you were being the ideal partner. But now you see that every concession cost you a piece of yourself. And deep down, what she felt for you was precisely because of who you were before you started to change. There's a kind of yielding that doesn't seem dangerous. It comes softly, gently, almost imperceptibly, and the request doesn't sound absurd. Can you do this for me? Why do you need that right now? Let's do it my way just this once. It sounds like affection, like partnership, but underneath, what's being tested is the solidity of your direction. Women, consciously or unconsciously, test, and these tests are not cheap games or manipulations. They're an instinctive search for reference, for emotional leadership, for someone who knows what he wants and doesn't stray from it just to please. When you start giving in to everything, when every wish of hers becomes a new route for you, when your plans begin to depend on her mood or opinion, you stop being the pillar and become an extension, an emotional accessory. And maybe you think this is maturity, that it's being flexible, that it's being a good partner. But inside her, something begins to go quiet. That admiration that used to light up her eyes starts to fade, because masculine magnetism is born from firmness, from clarity, from direction. A man without direction isn't a rock. He's a boat adrift. And a boat adrift, sooner or later, becomes a burden. And what she once respected now irritates her. You start to feel that everything you do for her is never enough. That the more you adapt, the more she distances herself, that your sweetness became invisibility, that your devotion became a duty. And it's not because she's ungrateful, it's because you stopped leading. You traded your focus for her comfort. You abandoned your mission to live the mission of the relationship, and a man who abandons his mission loses his name, loses his center, loses respect, not just hers, but his own too. That's when the emptiness comes. Silent, cold, and devastating, because there is no greater pain than knowing you betrayed yourself in trying to be accepted. And now, neither she nor you recognizes who you are anymore. Not everything she says she wants is what actually keeps desire alive, and that's confusing. Because you hear requests that sound sincere, reply faster, tell me everything, spend more time with me, don't leave without telling me. You think you're nurturing the relationship, but in truth, you're being tested. These aren't about control, they're about perception. She wants to see if you'll fold or if you'll keep the mystery, if you'll dissolve or stay solid under pressure. The truth is, when you give everything, everything loses its value. The mystery that once created tension becomes predictability. The presence that once had weight becomes a routine. The attention that once felt like a gift becomes protocol. She begins to feel that she has you in the palm of her hand. And what's in the palm of the hand doesn't seduce. It's there, ready, delivered, without resistance. And feminine desire, as inconvenient as it may be, doesn't come from possession. It comes from challenge, from doubt, from the thrill of not knowing whether she can bend you. But you, trying to be transparent, trying to show love, trying to prove you're different, start giving yourself away in details, in time, in unfiltered vulnerability. You open everything. You answer everything. You justify yourself constantly. And then something changes. Her tone changes. Her gaze changes. Her body starts to pull away. Not out of cruelty. It's emotional biology. You went from masculine presence to emotional predictability. It's not the giving that exhausts her. It's the absence of resistance. It's the feeling that you lost your own axis just to not lose her. And the cruelest paradox is this. She asks for everything, but admires the man who doesn't give everything. She tests and respects the one who doesn't bend. She says she wants transparency, but desires the man who knows what to show and what to keep in silence. Because the man who gives himself away completely disappears, and what's left is just the shadow of who he was when she first fell for him. Some requests seem harmless, but they carry a dangerous seed. The idea that love only exists if you abandon parts of yourself. She won't scream, she won't impose, she'll smile, look you in the eye, and ask gently. But it's precisely in that gentleness where the risk lies. Because when you agree, thinking you're just giving in out of love, What you're really doing is allowing parts of your identity to be erased. When she says, "Stop going out with your friends for me," what seems like care is the beginning of your isolation. You give up your ground, your circle, your space, and without realizing it, you become smaller, because a man who cuts his own ties starts losing his own name, and with it, he also loses her admiration. When she says, "Text me all the time," she doesn't want presence, she wants control. And you, trying to show commitment, become constant, predictable, suffocating. And the mystery that once made you interesting vanishes. When she says, "Prove that you love me," she's trying to turn love into performance. But love that needs constant proof is never enough. What truly sustains the feeling is posture, coherence, quiet consistency. When she says, "Change your style, your vibe, your way," you might think you're evolving, but in practice, you're disconnecting from your signature, and what was once authentic becomes imitation. What was once essence becomes adaptation. You stop being rare and become generic. When she says, "Let's decide everything together," it sounds fair, mature, modern, but deep down, it's another test. She wants to see if you lead, if you have pulse, if you know how to make decisions even when they don't please. Sharing is noble, but giving up leadership is the beginning of the end. These 5 requests sound loving, but when accepted without filter, they become traps. Because the man who says yes to everything is saying no to himself. And a man who constantly denies himself doesn't live, he just obeys. And in the end, the respect you wanted so badly slips through your fingers, because she may still smile. She may still say she loves you, but deep down, silently, she no longer admires you. Deep down, behind every look she gives you, behind every subtle request, there's a truth she doesn't say. Maybe because she doesn't know, maybe because she can't, but she feels it. She feels when you bow. She feels when you abandon your direction just to guarantee her presence. She feels when the man in front of her begins to mold himself instead of holding his ground. And that feeling doesn't inspire gratitude. It inspires doubt. It inspires insecurity. It creates the sense that she's next to someone who could be blown over by the wind, not someone who can weather the storm. You don't need to be harsh. You don't need to be cold, but you do need to be non-negotiable in what makes you who you are. The woman who truly loves you doesn't want to see you obey. She wants to see you firm. She wants to place her chaos against the structure of your world and feel that you can take it, that you won't fall apart. That you won't over-explain, over-apologize, or give yourself away before it's time. That's the kind of man she respects. That's the kind of man she desires. That's the kind of man she tests. And when she sees he won't break, she gives herself fully. Your value isn't in how much you do for her. It's in how much of yourself you preserve, even when everything in you wants to give in. Remember, every request carries a choice, and every choice brings an invisible consequence. Say yes to everything and you'll watch desire fade. Say no with firmness and you'll watch respect build silently. You don't need to be loved at any cost. You need to be whole. And being whole means not needing to shout to be heard, nor bending to be chosen. She may not understand it at first. She may even get irritated by your boundaries. But deep down, she'll know there stands a man, not a puppet, not a reflection, a man, and that is far too rare to be ignored.